And you can't do that. You can't get away with that. Of course, that gap will close when you croak. But we would like to call this the art of allowing in a pre-croaking environment. In other words, we would like you to come to the place where you are using your guidance in the way you intended, where you are utilizing your ability to understand what you're doing vibrationally. You are vibrational beings. And when you would recognize that and you begin to synthesize consciously the vibration of your being through your solar plexus, through your emotions, and it becomes more and more consciously important to you that you feel good, you will begin to become a more combined, more aligned, more allowing, more tuned in, tapped in, tuned in body. You will be the being that you were born to be. And that's what this gathering is all about. As we began to say earlier, it doesn't really matter in the scope of the big picture whether you consciously understand who you are and how you fit into this or not, because you got here by virtue of your intention. You can't help but explore contrast because it surrounds you and it's the nature of your beingness. And so you can't help but constantly give birth to expansion, which the larger part of you takes hold of and experiences. So the universe expands. The future generations being born will be born from that expanded vantage point. So nothing could go wrong in this picture, except you might hold yourself apart from who you've become. And when you do that, you don't feel good, and you're supposed to feel good. And that's what's screwy about the human experience. You're supposed to feel good, and mostly you don't. You're supposed to love yourself, and mostly you don't. You're supposed to feel confident, and mostly you don't. And the reason you mostly don't is because you've gotten a little out of whack in this comparison thing that goes on. In other words, you're a little heavy on the know what I don't want. So if what you're observing is missing some things you want, and you are pointedly looking at the missing things, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, then you set up within yourself a vibration that will not let you move toward what you have already created. In other words, when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and the larger part of you went over to what you do want and is giving that undivided attention. You keep all day, every day, you continue to amend your desire, amend your desire, amend your desire. As you live, you constantly are coming to new conclusions about what would be a better process, what would feel better, what would make the world better, what would make you feel better, what would make a relationship better, what would make your kitchen drawer better. In other words, you can't stop identifying what would be better. It's the nature of that which we all are in our expanded beingness. Now, in terms of law of attraction is responding to who you are becoming. So every time you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and law of attraction responds to that request. And the sensation that creates for you is a feeling of being called toward source. It's like a raging river that is moving downstream toward everything that you want, and everything that you want is downstream. Jerry and Esther went whitewater rafting, and when they put their boat in the water, it didn't occur to them or any of the other people that were with them. There were several rafts that went in at the same time. It did not occur to any of them to paddle upstream. It was so obvious that that river was going to have its way with them. The river guide said, "Friends, this is not Disneyland, and we cannot turn this river off." He really wanted to get their attention. This is a river, and it's moving that way, and you're going to move with it. And we want to say the same thing to you. There's a river, it's moving that way, and you're going to move with it. And what this seminar wants to address is, you're going. Are you going willingly? If you go willingly, you feel fabulous. You feel elation, you feel passion, you feel clarity, you feel vim and vigor, you are frisky, you feel humorous, you feel joy, you feel clarity, you feel vitality, you feel flexibility. You're tuned in, tapped in, turned on if you go willingly. If you don't go willingly, you feel some measure of frustration. And by not going willingly, we simply mean, are you still focused upon whatever it was that caused you to know what you want because you know what you don't want? Are you still focused upon the I know what I don't want part of it? Are you focused upon global warming in the sense that there's a disaster coming, and if we don't do something, then it's all going to go bad? And using that as your excuse to deprive yourself from alignment with source energy? Or are you focused upon global warming from the sense that you are an eternal being and you are living on an eternal earth, and that things are expanding and that it's better today than it's ever been and getting better all the time? What are you focused upon? Whatever it is you are focused upon, are you using it as your excuse to come into alignment with the way the source within you is seeing it? Or are you using it as an excuse to separate yourself from who you are? So the terminology that you'll hear from us all day long, because it's the most significant thing that you will ever identify and consciously begin to accomplish, are you letting you be who life has caused you to become? The answer is easy. If you feel good, yes. If you feel bad, no. If you feel really good, yes, yes, yes. If you feel really bad, no, no, no. In other words, the way you feel tells you everything about your vibrational countenance. And your vibrational countenance is worth knowing about because it is your point of attraction. And when you get crossways of who you really are, you don't feel good. You don't feel jealousy or disappointment or fear or insecurity or anger or any form of negative emotion because you are living in a competitive world and someone out there is competing and getting your resources. You don't feel negative emotion because you are being deprived of something because you can't be. You're feeling negative emotion because you're depriving yourself of that which you have become. It's not competition with others. When you see others excelling, all that does is help you synthesize the data and decide what you want for you. When you feel negative emotion, it's you not keeping up with you. And that's all it is. You say, no, I'm sure it's her fault. Because I didn't feel this way till she did that. So how do you explain that, Abraham? I was feeling happy. She did that. Now I'm not happy. It must be her fault. And we say, you're looking at something that's got something activated in you that's different than what the source within you is thinking and seeing. In other words, when you see the world through the eyes of source, you feel wonderful. When you don't feel so good. There's a rampant misconception in human experience that goes like this. These circumstances please me and these do not. So I will use all of my power, even gathering together with others, to orchestrate change in the condition. Because a better condition will make us all feel better. And we say, how's that working out? You can't even get your kids to do what you want them to do. And you will never get the world even to come to agreement about what is the right thing to do. Have you noticed? Imagine a universe where every point of consciousness is seen as valuable and expanding. And every point of consciousness gets to individually choose what they personally prefer. And source responding to every point of consciousness, so everyone getting what they want. A never-ending flood of resources. That's what you've got going on here. You do not need to compete with others for resources because the resources expand exponentially in direct relationship to the asking that you offer. And any shortage that any of you or anyone that you know is living is not because the resources are limited. It's because you are crossways of the resources. When you beat the drum of lack, the abundance that you've been asking for cannot come to you. It defies law. You must beat the drum of what you want in order to be a vibrational match to what you want. And only when you are a vibrational match to what you want will what you want come to you. It's really a lovely thing. It's so nice to know that in this plethora of emotions, that there is always one emotion that you can always reach from wherever you are. And that is the emotion of relief. If you are in despair, you cannot find the emotion of appreciation. They are very different vibrationally. And in fact, when you reach for the vibration of appreciation from your place of despair or depression or anger or fear, you can't find it. It's too far apart. But you could find a thought that feels a little better. You could find a thought that feels a little better. And when you understand that that's all you need to do, just lean downstream, so to speak. Just reach for the best feeling thought that you can find from where you are. Now that will really serve you, because in time, as you're reaching for something that feels better and reaching for something that feels better on topic after topic, before you know it, you've trained yourself into alignment with who you really are on topic after topic. And now you're letting flow to you whatever it is you've been asking for. When you begin to turn your attention to what you want and why you want it, and you begin to talk about why you want it rather than how you're going to get it or when it's going to come or where it's going to come from, as you begin to talk about what you want and why you want it, you turn in the direction of it and you begin closing that gap. As you close the gap, circumstances, events begin to line up for you, and you begin to notice that all around you, things are lighting up. There's this never-ending unfolding that is taking you right to where you want to be. We think it is such a lovely thing when you catch on that your emotions tell you everything, and that the better you feel, the more you are moving toward what you want, and the worse you feel, the more you are not. Nothing that you're living just came out of the blue. Sometimes it comes out of the oblivious, but it never comes out of the blue. You're offering a vibration about it, or it could not happen. We are eager to talk with you. What do you want to talk about?
Good morning.
It is.
It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise.
If all of us are the creators or masters of our own reality, what is the appropriate attitude towards sympathy and charity?
When you sympathize with someone's plight, you in time achieve vibrational alignment with it, which draws you from the power with which you could help them. For example, this stream that's upstream and downstream. Downstream is expectation of their recovery. Upstream is concern about their sickness. Downstream is expectation of well-being. Upstream is awareness of not well-being. Often when someone says, I'm going to heal myself, they turn upstream because they're focused upon the illness that they're wanting to overcome. So it's an upstream vibration. So words are not very important, but usually when someone is offering sympathy or compassion, they're looking at something unwanted. And in doing so, they deprive themselves of the resources. Jesus is a healer that is often spoke of. There have been many. But when you sat before him dripping your illness, he did not allow himself to see your illness. Instead, he knew your wellness. And he knew it so powerfully because he was seeing through the eyes of Source that your illness for the time of his gaze could not abide in the vibration. In other words, he just blitzed the vibration with so much knowledge of well-being that it influenced you to the belief of well-being. He told more than one, it's your belief that has made you whole. And your belief was influenced by his belief. Now, that would be the best definition of compassion. Attention to what is really wanted. But you see, when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and the Source within you turns its undivided attention toward what you do want. So we would say follow suit with the Source energy. Give undivided attention to what is wanted. When you give your attention to what is not wanted, you cannot help but join that vibration. And when you join that vibration, you cannot help but pull yourself apart from the powerful resources of well-being. And then you have nothing to give. People sometimes say, Abraham, you teach selfishness. We say, indeed we do. Because if you're not selfish enough to keep yourself tuned in, tapped in, turned on, you have nothing to give anyone. So you just have to ask yourself, how compassionate do you want to be? There are people so compassionate that they feel terrible all the time and they are of no value to anyone. And there are people so selfish that they feel good all the time and they are of value to anyone that they give their attention to. So we would say compassion or happy. Pick happy every time. We would say appreciation or gratitude. Feel the difference. Gratitude, almost always looking at what you're grateful that you have overcome. Splitting hairs, but can't you feel the difference? I'm grateful that I don't have that anymore. Now you've got it again. Appreciation is attention to that which is becoming. Think of the word in and of itself, appreciation, expansion, becoming.